You've had a great coaching career at Northside High School. Kind of tell us how your journey has been.
Well, I still remember the day when I saw it pop up on Max Preps and the North Carolina State coaching website. Knowing the program's history, I wasn't exactly sure if I was going to be given the shot or not. And I still remember sitting in my backyard getting the call from Angela Buchanan. Jumped right in it and met the girls about a week later. And from there, it's just been one heck of a fun and what I believe successful 5-year run.
Successful, you say, in your 5-year run, you were 118 wins and 19 losses, so that's not too bad. It's almost as good as the Indians are doing this year. Coach, when you took over the Lady Monarchs basketball team, they had consecutive winning seasons, about 4 or 5 in a row. Was it hard taking over a team that had already had a tradition of winning?
Well, it was hard, and it was a bit stressful, being it was my first head varsity coaching job. And knowing that I was coming in there with 3 seniors that in Ashanti and Jarnay and Kayla that really deserved to be given the best opportunity to have a successful and enjoyable senior year. They were actually in on the interview process with Coach Buchanan when I got the job, and I've received texts from them since this has all kind of come to an end, and knowing that over 5 years later that we were able to have an impactful, successful year that first year, and most importantly keep the tradition for the girls that I never had the chance to coach, that had all the success in their prior years with Jones and Womack. To be able to keep that going was not only, I think, vital to how our program was going to be for the future, but it was enjoyable to watch those first-year girls go out what I hope to believe they thought was a very good note.
If you could pick one coach, and I know all the coaches are great, all the high school basketball coaches and football coaches, but if you could pick, actually all sport coaches are great, if you could pick one coach that you always had to put a little extra work into getting ready to prepare for, who would it be?
You mean for all our past opponents?
Sure.
Well, I tell you what, we've had some great battles with East Duplin, and Coach Lane. He, regardless of the talent level, and even when he had Janisha McCoy go down, his girls always brought it, and you always had to make sure that you reminded the girls that East Duplin, they were scrappers. And then you look at Andrew Gurley from Croatan, who also has had some really exceptional years and probably has a group of high school girls running a 2-3 better than a lot of boys teams that I see try to run it. And then my buddy Chris Owens from Clinton, who unfortunately knocked us out this year, but fortunately for him and his program, we're able to go on and still win state. He always had his girls sharp and ready. So those are 3 that would really stick out in my mind and that I enjoyed coaching with, and that it was fun becoming friends with them over the past several years. And I have high regard and high respect for them, and I'm going to miss, looking down at the other end of the sideline and playing chess.
Talk to us about some of your memorable moments as the coach of the women's basketball team.
Well, a couple of my favorite wins. One would have to be our trip to Bunn. We went up there against Bunn, at Bunn. It was during that crazy year with the snow and the ice delays, and things were getting rerouted. And we drove to Bunn, and 3.5 hour, 4 hour drive. I don't believe they were undefeated. I don't think we were given much of a chance. And I still remember Charissa Moore hitting a baseline jumper early on, and it kind of just sparked the girls, and it was back and forth the whole time. They had the girl, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but she has one of the few quadruple doubles in girls basketball history in North Carolina. And I remember we had a key on her, and we had a key on a girl named Precious who shot a lot like Michaela Boykin from Clinton. we ended up pulling it out. I believe it was 58-50, and just watching the elation of the girls in the locker room, being able to embrace the assistant coaches, and then Coach Taylor from Grants Creek running across the court, and what a fun bus ride home. And then I would have to go to Bertie, where Bertie brought, you guys were there, you saw it, Bertie brought their whole town, including their, apparently their town marching band. They had us down pretty good in the first half, and they sure let us know about it, walking off the floor into the locker room, going into halftime. And, we had a good talk. It wasn't a yelling and screaming and what are you doing type talk. It was just a let's stay calm, and we still know we have the athletes. And we came out and, just barnstormed in the second half. And their only loss at that point had been to the Aussie national team. So to move on, that was another really great one. And then we've had countless, 1-point, 2-point games with East Duplin, as I had mentioned. But as far as big wins, big moments, those were it. But being able to do things like the Coaches versus Cancer, start a Christmas tournament, all of that, put together, it's just been an incredible experience.
You actually were still at White Oak when you started coaching at Northside, and you took over a Northside team that had already won the conference championship. I think 3 years. They won 8 consecutive now. You picked up the mantle and ran with that for the next 5, so it's 8 now, but they'd already won 3 years. Tell me how you felt, having to work in another school and coach at Northside, as well as taking over a team that hadn't had a losing record since, I think, the 2007-2008 season.
Well, I was appreciative, first of all, that they were willing to do that. I was teaching English at the time, and I was over at White Oak, and it was fun because I had a lot of those White Oak girls, and they had a pretty decent year that first year. So there was a lot of razzing in the hallways, and a lot of it was fun. And then there were some people that were actually a little upset, which I found humorous. But good old-fashioned rivalry competition. So I was living in the rival's den, and it was nice to change from the shirt and tie and to put on the Northside shirt and walk out the building and drive down to the school that I was able to call home for the 4 years at school and the 5 years of coaching after that. So that aspect of it was great. I was fortunate enough to get in there as a teacher the following year, but that first year was interesting, and I had to let them know, as much as I enjoyed being their teacher, that we were planning on beating them on the floor, and but that led to some good times and some good trash talk, and if you can't enjoy that kind of good old-fashioned competition, then you're not a competitor in the first place. So it was a blast. I started my career in Hudson, Ohio, as a freshman girls basketball coach. I moved to JV, and then when I decided that my passion was to run a program, I even took 2 years as a middle school coach, just so I could collectively understand the whole aspect of a program from 7th grade through 12th grade. And then before I moved down here, I was offered a position, but we had already made up our mind to move to North Carolina. But when we got down here, I did a year under Coach Grantham, which I learned a lot under Coach Grantham in 1 year, and that was the 1 year I coached boys. But then, Coach Buchanan and Miss Johnson, I'm very gracious for them to be able to take a chance on a first-year varsity coach with their background and of success. So for them to take a chance on a rookie varsity coach, I think I can't do anything else but be forever grateful for. And I'd like to say I didn't disappoint them, but that's not up to me. So.
Now, we put this question to Coach Doug Kidd up at Swansboro because he coaches men and women at the same time. He coaches both ends of soccer. But I'm going to ask you this, having coached both young men and young women in basketball, what are the differences you see in your coaching style and in the playing style?
The coaching style. The first time I was offered, when I first started at Hudson, I told them I wanted to coach basketball, and they called me and they said, we have a freshman position, which will, hopefully, maybe lead to, just we'll see how it goes. And I said that's great. And then they said that was, there's one catch, and I said, what's that? They said you wanted to coach boys basketball, and I said no, thank you. After they had said it was girls. And the athletic director at Hudson called me that night and said, I'd like you to rethink it. And I said, okay, I did. And 2 seconds later said, no, thank you again. But then I met with the varsity coach the following day and sat down with him and expressed my concerns just about the differences. I didn't, just obviously over the years, I'm sure it's not a secret that my competitive nature, I didn't know if would fit with girls. But my first varsity coach told me, the big difference is learning that with guys, you got to sometimes remind them they're not as good as they think they are. With girls, you have to remind them sometimes they're better than they think they are. And so it kind of became a bringing them back down to reality versus being able to motivate. And over the years, although I'll admit that I'm hard on my players, I think that with women's basketball, I think there's a lot more self-confidence and motivating factors to it. And as for the play itself, the boys' game is obviously a little faster, played above the rim a lot more. But I don't really think when it comes to X's and O's, at the end of the day, boys or girls, play hard or don't win. Whether you're a guy or a girl, you can dive for a loose ball. Whether you're a guy or a girl, you can put somebody on the rear end and go up and get a rebound. The shell drill doesn't change in practice, regardless of what gender you're coaching. So the game itself obviously has some different nuances, but at the end of the day, I'm forever grateful that I was talked into it 14, 15 years ago, because I think it panned out pretty well.